I want to start today with a question that sounds deceptively simple, but the more you look at it, the more it starts to break your brain.
Mm,
I'm not talking about what's for dinner or, did I leave the stove on? I'm talking about the ultimate chicken or the egg scenario.
it really is the biggest question there is.
Does the universe exist by choice or or by chance?
That is the thread, isn't it? If you pull on that one question, you end up unraveling, well, pretty much everything we think we know about reality.
Right.
It forces you to decide what comes first. The stuff out there, stars, atoms, the physical world, or the stuff in here. Our minds, our thoughts, our consciousness.
And that is exactly where we are going today. We are doing a deep dive into a paper by Tennyson Samraj, and it has a pretty heavy title,
Oh, yeah.
Delineating Consciousness and Freedom as an Ontological Entanglement and Existential Phenomena.
It's a mouthful, to say the least.
It is. And usually when I see words like ontological entanglement, I run the other way. But you promised me that underneath the jargon, there's a conflict here that affects literally everyone listening.
There absolutely is. Look, stripped of the fancy language, Samraj is setting up a battle between two fundamental worldviews. View number one. The universe is a happy accident.
Okay.
It evolved, created biology, created brains, and those brains essentially manufactured consciousness.
So in that view, matter comes first. Mind is just a byproduct, like a fume coming off the engine,
Right. Or, there's view number two, consciousness actually created the universe.
which is a massive flip.
It is, and Samraj is arguing for that second view. He takes the stance that essence precedes existence. He believes consciousness isn't like sweat or heat. It's not something your body just gives off. He thinks it's the fundamental, pre-existing fabric of reality.
Okay, so instead of the universe waking up and becoming conscious, consciousness woke up and built a universe.
Exactly. And to get us there, he has to take down the standard scientific view first. We have to start with what he calls the milk from grass problem.
I love this analogy. It's so weirdly specific. Walk us through this. What is the milk from grass problem?
So think about how we usually get taught science.
Yeah.
We're told that if you take enough neurons, billions of them, and you wire them up in this super complex way and you zap them with electrochemical signals, poof, you get a mind.
Right, you get the feeling of being you.
Yeah.
That's the emergent theory. The whole is, greater than the sum of its parts. You stack enough Lego bricks and eventually they become self-aware.
Essentially, yes. It views the brain as a factory. Raw materials are biological cells, wet, physical matter, and the product is this invisible, abstract thing called consciousness. But Samraj looks at this and just says, that doesn't actually make sense.
Why not? I mean, we see brains thinking.
He argues there's a category error. He says trying to get a subjective experience, like the feeling of freedom or love out of wet biological matter is, and I'm quoting him here, like trying to extract milk from green grass.
But wait, cows eat grass and produce milk. That happens.
A cow does.
Hmm.
But the grass itself doesn't contain the milk. You can't squeeze a blade of grass and get a latte. You need a biological mechanism to transform it.
Ah, I see.
But his point goes deeper. He uses another image. The brain is mostly water. He says trying to squeeze the concept of freedom out of water is impossible. You can't get something abstract and non-material out of something that is purely material.
I think I get what he's saying. You can study a neuron under a microscope forever, and you'll see chemistry, you'll see electricity, but you will never see a thought. You'll never see sadness.
Precisely. You can't explain the mind just by looking at the matter. So if the brain isn't a factory making consciousness, what is it?
And this is where he pivots to the transduction theory.
Yes. And this changes everything. He suggests the brain isn't a producer, it's a receiver.
Like a radio.
Exactly like a radio. This is the best way to visualize it. Imagine you're listening to a symphony on a portable radio. If you smash that radio with a hammer, the music stops.
Obviously.
But did the radio create the music?
No. No, of course not. The radio is just catching a signal that was already in the air. The orchestra is somewhere else.
Right. If the radio breaks, the music stops locally, but the broadcast continues. Samraj argues consciousness is non-local. It's a field. It's everywhere. And your brain, my brain, our listener's brain, these are just biological transducers. We tune into this field and create a local consciousness.
He has a very visceral phrase for this in the paper. He says, consciousness is mediated by the brain, not excreted by it.
Not excreted. It's graphic, but it works. We're not making the signal, we're just playing it.
Okay, so that handles the biology side. But Samraj isn't satisfied with just saying brains are radios. He wants to prove why that signal has to be there in the first place. And that's where things get, well, a little tricky, because he starts bringing in quantum physics.
He does. And honestly, you can't really talk about consciousness and the origin of the universe these days without bumping into quantum mechanics.
We're talking about Schrödinger.
We
Now,
are.
usually when people bring up Schrödinger, they just talk about the cat. The cat's in the box. It's dead and alive at the same time until you look. It's like a meme at this point.
Right.
But Samraj uses it for something much bigger.
He's interested in the observer effect. The core idea in quantum mechanics is that reality, at a fundamental level, exists in a superposition of states. It's all just possibilities, waves of probability, until an observer enters the picture.
To be is to be observed.
That's the catchphrase. The act of measurement of observation collapses that wave function and makes reality definite. Before you look, it's a cloud of maybe. After you look, it's a thing.
Okay, I'm with you so far. I need to look at the electron to pin it down. But how does Samraj get from electrons to the origin of the whole universe?
He sets a logical trap, and honestly, when you read it, it's hard to find the exit. He says, okay, standard cosmology tells us the universe had a beginning, the Big Bang.
Right, 13.8 billion years ago.
And standard quantum physics says nothing exists definitively without an observer to collapse the possibilities into reality.
Okay, I think I see where this is going.
So if the universe had a beginning, who observed the beginning?
Whoa.
I mean, think about it. Humans didn't exist. Biological brains didn't exist. Cats certainly didn't exist. So if an observer is required for the universe to go from mathematical possibility to physical reality, there had to be an observer before the universe began.
So he's arguing that you literally cannot have a Big Bang without someone watching it happen.
Exactly. And since that observer couldn't be a human local consciousness, it must have been a non-local consciousness, a global observer.
This flips the timeline completely. In school, I learned universe first, then planets, then life, then brains, then consciousness. He's saying consciousness first, then the universe.
Yes. Cosmology is contingent on consciousness. The universe is the result of a conscious act.
But hold on. Is he saying this observer is just like a passive camera? A security guard watching a monitor just so things exist? Or is there more to it?
Oh, it's much more than just watching. Samraj builds this argument by defining what it actually means to be. He brings in some heavy philosophical hitters to build what you might call a ladder of being.
Let's climb the ladder. Who's on the first rung?
First, he points to George Berkeley. You might know him from the whole if a tree falls in the forest debate.
Right.
Berkeley said, to be is to be perceived, meaning if no one sees it, it's not really there.
Roughly, yeah. Perception is necessary.
Then Samraj steps it up to Alexius Meinong, and this is where it gets more nuanced. Meinong argued, to be is to be conceived.
Conceived. How is that different from perceived?
Think of an architect. Before a building exists physically, before you can perceive it with your eyes, it exists as a blueprint in the architect's mind. It has a structure, it has a logic, it is conceived.
Okay, so perception is seeing the building. Conception is designing it.
Exactly. And finally, we have Schrödinger. To be is to be observed. Samraj combines these to define 3 levels of reality, and this is crucial for his whole argument.
Lay them on us.
First, there's to exist. That's the material world. The table, the chair, the coffee, the stuff that changes.
Physical stuff we bump into.
Then there's to subsist. This is the mathematical, non-temporal world. Rational truths. A triangle, for example. The concept of a triangle doesn't exist in space. You can't bump into the number 4, but it subsists. It's real.
A triangle is a triangle forever. It was a triangle before the Big Bang, and it'll be a triangle after the heat death of the universe.
Exactly. And finally, and this is Samraj's special term, to obsist.
Obsist.
It comes from absolute. This is the mental world of intentionality, the world of the being given. Samraj argues that for the material world to come about, it had to be conceived and intended by a consciousness.
So it creates this hierarchy. The mental is more foundational than the physical.
That's the ontological entanglement. You can't separate them, but the arrow of causation points one way, from mind to matter.
Okay, I have to stop you there.
Yeah.
Because if we're saying there's this global conceiver or non-local consciousness that can conceive the blueprints of the universe and observed it into existence, that sounds a lot like, well, are we just talking about God here?
We are, and
Aw.
Samraj doesn't shy away from that at all. In fact, he leans into it. He explicitly equates this non-local consciousness with divine consciousness, but, and this is important, he doesn't just say, it's God because I say so. He builds a logical argument based on freedom.
Freedom. How does freedom prove God?
Well, let's look at the nature of this consciousness. He argues it isn't just a passive mirror, it has four distinct features. It's intelligent, it's phenomenal, meaning it has a subjective experience. It's volitional, meaning it has a will. And it's intentional.
Intentionality, that's about madness, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can choose to think about a pink elephant.
Exactly. Matter can't do that. A rock can't choose to think about a tree, but a mind can. And because a mind can choose, it is defined by freedom.
And this leads to his atom analogy, which I found really compelling.
It's a fantastic comparison. He asks us to look at nuclear energy. We, as humans, can choose to split the atom to create energy. That's a cognitive, intentional choice.
We reverse engineer the energy out of the mass.
Right. So Samraj asks, if splitting the atom requires an intentional agent, doesn't creating the atom in the first place require an even greater intentional agent?
That's hard to argue with. If taking it apart takes intelligence, putting it together must take intelligence too.
Exactly. Mass and energy are interchangeable, EMC2, but the transition, the creation of matter from energy, requires an agency. He argues that the universe is a conscious decision.
And this ties into what he calls brute facts, doesn't it?
Yes. A brute fact is something that has no deeper explanation. It just is. It's bedrock. Samlage argues that freedom is a brute given.
Meaning we don't choose to be free.
Right. I mean, think about your own life. You are constantly making choices. Even if you decide to sit on the couch and do nothing, that is a choice. As Sartre said, man is condemned to be free. You can't turn it off.
Even deciding not to choose is a choice. I'm trapped in freedom.
Precisely. So Samraj's logic is, if we, the local consciousness, have this inescapable quality of freedom, and we're just transducers of the non-local consciousness, then the source must also be free and intentional.
So God, or this non-local consciousness, is defined fundamentally by freedom.
Yes. He even says to believe in freedom is to believe in God.
That's a bold statement.
It is, but follow the logic. If you believe the universe is just a machine, just random atoms bumping around, there's no room for freedom. Everything is determined. Your choice to have coffee this morning was basically determined by the Big Bang.
Which feels wrong. I really feel like I chose the coffee.
Exactly. If you believe you are truly free to choose, you are acknowledging that the fundamental nature of reality is volitional. You're acknowledging that choice is realer than atoms.
That is a heavy thought. If I am free, the universe must be conscious. It creates a bridge between physics and, well, theology that's remarkably sturdy.
It connects the dots between the stuff in here and the stuff out there.
But this raises a huge question for me personally. If we are all tuning into this same non-local field, this God signal, why aren't we all the same person? Why is your red my red? Why do I have my memories and you have yours?
That is the existential self. And to his credit, Samraj admits this is the tricky part. He calls it the hardest part to explain.
I'm glad he admits it. It feels like a gap.
He deals with it by separating awareness from individuality. He suggests that while awareness is transduced from the global field, individuality cannot be transduced.
So where does individuality come from then?
He argues that the unique you, the existential self, it appears at birth and disappears at death. It's a temporary phenomenon, essentially the specific frequency that your particular biological radio is tuned to.
Wait, so the me part dies?
The existential self, the unique combination of memories and personality that makes you host, that has a beginning and an end. He calls its birth and death root givens. However, and this is the key, the consciousness itself, the signal, does not die.
Okay, back to the radio. If I take a hammer to my radio, the specific song playing on that specific device stops, but the broadcast waves are still flowing through the room.
And because you're connected to that broadcast, there's an element of you that's eternal. This brings us to his final big concept, non-local realism.
This is related to entanglement again, isn't it?
As quantum particles can be entangled across vast distances where changing one instantly changes the other.
Faster than light.
Faster than light. Our minds are entangled with this universal mind. We are distinct, yet we are part of a singular interconnected field.
We're individual waves in the same ocean.
That's the classic metaphor, and it fits perfectly here. The wave rises, that's birth. It has a shape and a height, that's your life. And it crashes back into the ocean, that's death. The form is gone, but the water remains. The water was always there.
It's a comforting thought, in a way, but also a bit terrifying. It implies a level of connection we usually just ignore.
Well, it challenges the modern isolationist view. We tend to think of ourselves as biological robots, isolated in our skulls, navigating a dead mechanical universe. Samraj is saying, no, you are a localized expression of a vast, intelligent, free, and intentional universe.
It shifts the worldview from we are an accident to we are an architect's expression.
Or perhaps we're the architects in training. If we share the nature of this non-local consciousness, we share that creativity, that freedom, that intentionality.
So let's just recap this journey because we've covered some serious metaphysical ground here. We started with the brain. Is it a factory or a receiver?
We sided with the receiver, the transduction theory,
Then we look at the timeline. The Big Bang implies a big observer.
which necessitates a non-local global consciousness that precedes the physical universe. Essence precedes existence.
And we looked at the nature of that consciousness. It's not just a camera, it's a chooser. It creates atoms. It is defined by freedom.
And finally, we looked at ourselves. We are the temporary receivers of an eternal signal, bounded by freedom, entangled with the infinite.
It really makes you look at your own thoughts differently. You know, when I have a creative idea or I make a difficult choice, am I generating that purely from my own neurons? Or am I tuning into something larger?
That is the question. Samraj would say you're exercising the fundamental power of the universe. You are participating in the world of intentionality.
It certainly makes the daily grind feel a little more cosmic.
It restores a sense of mystery and dignity to being human. We aren't just matter in motion. We are mind in action.
I want to leave the listener with one final thought to mull over, something that really stuck with me from the paper.
Go for it.
We talked about the radio breaking, death. Samraj implies that while the existential self ends, the connection to the non-local doesn't. But here's what I'm wondering. Concepts like entanglement usually work both ways, right?
In physics, yes. If particle A affects particle B affects particle A. It's a two-way street.
Exactly. So if we are tuning into this global consciousness, does the global consciousness learn from us?
That is a profound question. Does the DJ hear the radio?
If I'm a radio playing a unique song, my life, my choices, my specific frequency, does that feed back into the system? If we are truly entangled, logic suggests the connection has to go both ways. Maybe our choices, our freedom, actually influence the big picture. Maybe we're not just listening to the broadcast. Maybe we're helping to write the next song.
That is a beautiful possibility. If we are entangled, we aren't just receiving. We might be transmitting.
Something to think about next time you're tuning your own dial. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Always a pleasure.